So, thank you for being here. Today, I just want to deal with a few issues. I had promised that there would be a more comprehensive exposition on the budget at my press conference. Today, I have quite a bit to say, but I think I'd reserve some of it for the National Assembly. The government machinery is in a total spin mode about how great this budget is and what it will do for people. But I think they're in a losing battle. And in spite of the spin, people will realize across Guyana when they have had a chance to go through the provisions of the budget in great detail and do an analysis of all the features of the budget. They will see that this budget is no different than any other budget that APNU has passed since they've been in office. It has continued the trend to massively increase recurrent expenditure, very little increase on capital expenditure, which is the creation of the stock of facilities, etc., that are available to people and things that you can point to. So once again, we've seen the budget. The minister boasted how large the budget is. And when you examine where the growth is, you will see that it is mainly on the recurrent side of the budget. So you would recall, just to give Guyanese a little indication of what the priorities of this government are in this budget, I'll go through back a table that I had done and spoken about before the budget was presented, pointing out the growth in expenditure for certain areas that I consider not critical to the well-being of people in Guyana. I've shown that in the past that there was a massive growth in the celebration of national events, how much we spend per year, compared to 2014. Well, that figure has gone up from 434 million, that is 2018 compared to 2014, to now $675 million per year more we are spending on celebrating national events. So I'm not going to go through the 2019 figures compared to 2014, so you get a picture of how massive the growth has been in these areas. So national events have grown by $675 million per year. Dietary has now gone up to $2.203 billion more per year than was spent in 2014. This is food in government. The other category on the other operating expenses, which is 629 in the budget, has gone up, and this is not defined. So it's there, it's amorphous. You don't know what they're spending this on. That has gone up by $1 billion more than in the past, in 2014. Local travel and subsistence has gone up by $1 billion more. This is just for local, leaving out foreign travel. That is for people to just travel around Guyana and get their subsistence. Vehicle spares and service has gone up by $645 million. Other transport, travel, and postage by $519 million. Rental of buildings has gone up by $827 million more compared to the past. Security services, this is not police or the army or discipline services. This has gone up by $2.617 billion. Now you would remember, you would note why this figure is significant. I've pointed out that many of the government ministers and their cohorts now have incorporated security firms. So we see a pattern here with this massive growth. Equipment maintenance has gone up by $595 million more per year. And other category on the other goods and services purchase has gone up by $3.397 billion per year more than when the PPP was in office. Combined, this gives you $13.5 billion increase in these 10 areas that I consider not essential. These areas have seen the biggest growth in the budgets under APNU. On the other hand, drug and medical supplies, so if you exclude the regions, in 2014, we budgeted $5.138 billion for purchase of drugs and medical supplies. In 2019, they budgeted $5.121 billion, less than was budgeted in 2014 in this year to buy drugs and medical supplies for all of our people across Ghana. But they have increased these 10 areas by $13.5 billion. If you look at the capital expenditure, excluding the regions again, capital expenditure between 2014 and 2019 has gone up by, for public security, $1.5 billion, for health, $1.6 billion, and for education, $1.5 billion. A $4.6 billion increase in capital expenditure in three critical sectors: health, education, and public security. Guess what? That we only could have spent $4.6 billion more between 2014 and now in these three areas for capital, the three big ministries for capital. And we're spending more than that, almost more than that, just on other goods and purchases. And other purchases that has increased phenomenally. So it tells you, this tells you a lot. I know it's a lot of numbers, but the numbers illustrate the priorities of this government. And I would urge Guyanese to go behind the numbers. That's where you will see the extravagance, the profligacy, the duplicity of this government. What are their priorities? They prefer to spend more on eating, on rental of buildings, on vehicle spares, on travel, than they're spending on public security, on education and healthcare, and drug purchases. This is the priority of this budget. Just look at the estimates. And so it's not the narrative that the minister read. That's not the budget. The budget is the estimates. That's where you have to go to for when you want to look at what's happening. So let us look at a bit about capital expenditure. The ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, under policy development and administration, this was the budget they had. In 2017, they had $1.331 billion. In 2018, it was $1.183 billion, a reduction. And in 2019, it fell to $815 million. That is the Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs. On 171, which is policy development, look at the capital expenditure there. So it has gone down by almost more than $500 million from 2017 level, and about 300 million from the 2018 level. So we see a steady decline in this ministry. In the Ministry of Agriculture, capital expenditure, you would think that this will be expanded given the rhetoric of the minister. In 2018, they had $4.6 billion budgeted for capital expenditure in Ministry of Agriculture. And in 2019, they have 4.614, practically same. A $12 million increase. But what is interesting is that $1.8 billion of this 4.6 billion they budgeted will be coming in from foreign sources. So practically the same, no increase in agriculture. 4.6 billion in 2018, 4.6 billion in 2019. The only thing different is some of it is coming in from abroad this time. The Ministry of Public Works in 2017 got 29.3 billion. In 2018, 24.1 billion, and now this year, $26 billion. And 13.8 billion is inflows from coming in of that 26 billion. So here you see a pattern to all the talk about massive infrastructural projects, etc. They had 29 billion in 2017, and they're getting 26 billion now. Although the budget has increased by $30-odd billion. So this tells you a picture too. The Ministry of the Public Telecommunications, they had $2.564 billion in 2018. They're getting $2.2 billion now, and $2 billion is coming in from abroad. The Ministry of Education is the only one seeing a bit of growth here. It moves from 2.8 to $3.7 billion, about $900 million increase for policy development and administration, training and development, nursery education, primary education, secondary education, post-secondary, tertiary. These are capital works, $900 million. So we have seen bigger increases in rental of buildings for government and maintenance of buildings than we have seen for the entire capital budget for growth in the Ministry of Education, in spite of what we've heard. I can go on. Child care, they had $165 million in 2018. That's child care and protection. It's dropped to $80 million this year. Yes, $80 million for capital works. The Ministry of Public Security had $3.4 billion in 2017. They got in 2018 $3.1 billion. In 2019, it's $3.8 billion. So a $400 million increase, $400 million increase on the 2017 level. That is less than the increase in local travel and subsistence. That is what for national security, this Ministry of Public Security, the DPP budget was 14 million, it fell to 3.4 million. So this is excluding all the capitals for the region. The total capital increase for the entire 10 regions has been $1.425 billion. And this is for 5 programs. It's for regional administration, agriculture, health, education, and public infrastructure. So the 10 regions got $1.4 billion more for 5 of their programs. So this paints a picture. You've seen where billions are going to rentals and food and travel and maintenance of vehicles and security, not public security, but security for ministers and other things. And where very little goes to the productive sectors. I've just outlined that to you where the numbers don't lie. So let me show you a couple of examples of the fat in the government. So take, for example, the Prime Minister's Secretariat. In 2013, the capital expenditure there was about $6.2 million, 6.2 million. In 2014, 4.1. In 2015, it's 102. 2016, 156. 2017, 295. 2018, 145. 2019, 149. This Prime Minister would have spent nearly $848 million through his secretariat. And trust me, there are lots of rooms for shenanigans and wickedness there in the period. Compared to 5 years when, under Prime Minister Samuel Hines, so when they would have spent about $30 million in those 5 years, compared to his 5 years of $848 million. So this is where a lot of the slush fund is and where they make a ton of money. Just the comparisons to give you a picture of what. And you know this guy doesn't do anything. And so I think most people by now would have gotten the picture. And so I urge Guyanese to read, not just listen to the minister's speech. It was a long speech. But just go to the estimates, and then you will see what is happening. So let us go to a few of the things that he did. He talked a good game. So the minister, let me take just one area where the minister was talking about roads and bridges. So the minister spent about 30 minutes painting this wonderful picture of the road from Letem, connecting an aerodrome in Letem, the road between Mabura and Letem, between Linden and Letem, between Georgetown and Diamond, then Diamond to Soesdijk. He said this entire corridor will open up the vast Rupunoni and would connect us to the transcontinental highway. So we'll now be connected to South America and Central America and North America. We can drive all the way there and will open up lots of lands. So Guyanese got excited about this. This government is finally doing something major. You know, they haven't done anything so far except old PPP projects. So people must be excited because he spoke about 25 minutes on this matter and extol the virtues of doing the road, etc. So let us look at what will actually start in the next 3-5 years. None of these will practically start. So listen to he said, Linden-Letem Road will be the main hub for hinterland connectivity. So they will commence the feasibility study for the 125 km from Linden to Mabura and a bridge across the Kurupukari. Not the road, the feasibility study. They said that last year, that from the British, they were getting the money. They didn't do the feasibility study. They're going to do the feasibility study this year, but we're not even sure that it will be feasible. So what if it is not feasible? Then it wouldn't happen. But he already talked as though it would be built. Then the part from Mabura, that's up to Mabura. From Mabura to Letem, they're in discussion with the Brazilian government. That discussion could take about 20 years because we had those discussions too, and we didn't get very far with them, with the Brazilian government building the road for us. So That's not going to happen too, the Mabura to Lethem part. Then he said they're doing a feasibility study to upgrade Linden Airdrome in 2019. So if that's not feasible, the airdrome in Linden would not be upgraded too. Then he came, so that's it. From Linden to Lethem, it's all about studies. Then let's come down to the Soesdijk Highway. He said they're setting aside $134 million to execute studies and design for rehabilitation of 72 kilometers from Linden Soesdijk Highway. So that's not the construction again, another set of studies. So that brings us from Lethem now, we're at Soesdijk. All studies so far, nothing to start in 2019, but he spoke 25 minutes about this. So he jumps to the East Bank now. He says the bypass under the PPP was going to cost $50 million. It is now going to cost $120 million. That is from Ogle to Diamond. And we are approaching our bilateral partners for additional funding. They haven't secured it as yet. They are now going to approach the bilateral partners. So that's a long, drawn-out thing again. Then he said the extension from Diamond to from Diamond to Soesdijk, they've commenced discussions with interested development partners. Who these partners are, we don't know. So now you realize we are no clearer to construction anything, and we're already at Ogle, because the part from Soesdijk now is to Diamond. They're discussing that, and they haven't secured the financing for the bypass outside of the $51 million that the PPP left, but it's now escalated to that. So jump to the East Coast now. They want to extend, the PPP left this road project that's been constructed, so they want to extend that. So the Islamic Development Bank is now considering their application. So forget the extension of that all the way to Mahaica for the time being. It's not going to happen in 2019 or 2020. So that's the road network. Nothing so far. Then let's look across the bridge now. He said we're going to go and build this 4-lane bridge and use a PPP model. So let me use that since somebody is playing some music passing. Might be up, no. So, it's masqueraders. Oh, okay. So let's look at the bridge now. The bridge, he said, they're still proceeding with a 4-lane, high-span bridge across the Demerara River, and that they invited the CDB now to revise the terms of reference for the bridge. Now, if the first feasibility study you did showed that the bridge was barely feasible with substantial public support, that is for a 3-lane bridge that is not a high-span bridge, how come this feasibility study, you haven't done a feasibility study and you're moving ahead with this bridge too? And I do not think that the Caribbean Development Bank will want to touch this project with a long stick, because it's so mired in corruption, given what went to the Public Procurement Commission, that this is another hustle. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So then we jump to Parika, and he said in 2019, another feasibility study to make Parika into a modern maritime hub, and spoke about Parika for about 20 minutes. People in Parika already planning to do this, and they're to invest in this thing. It's a study again. And then he wants to link Bartica, the old Del Conte project that was under the PP, they brush it out, and he said, I want to link Bartica to Parika now. I'll open up 2,000 hectares of land, and they cut the cost of travel to Bartica. And people in Bartica say, thank God it's happening. It's not happening because they have now been trying to engage international financiers and development partners. I just took something that he spoke about, the infrastructure, the visionary infrastructure, the transformative infrastructure that he spoke about, that for 25, 30 minutes in his budget presentation, and it's all meaningless. None of it will happen. It's all studies. And none of it is reflected in any of the capital programs. This is called duping people, talking long, talking about the benefits of these things, how many jobs they will bring, where they connect you with, the trade will emerge. And this is going to happen in the long term. We're nowhere near any closer. So this, a substantial part of the budget was falsehood. And this is what APNU does well. APNU trades in this sort of thing. So let us talk a bit now about the tax measures. So the minister reduces the taxes on shandy, but he could not remove the tax on prescription drugs. So now shandy is more important than people, old people, everyone going to the pharmacy now and having to buy drugs when they're sick or medical supplies and having to pay a 14% VAT on it. That is their priority. The remigrants, they went abroad and said how much they needed skills. Granger and Nagamoto and all of the others in the pre-2015 era said they needed more people to come back here. And what they did, they now curtail significantly the credit, the allowances that remigrants got to when they remigrated to Guyana, when people came back here. So if you do have problems with the system abuse, fix the abuse, but do not withdraw the benefits from everyone. This is what they have done by limiting the credit to $5 million now. So students who were abroad for 4 years, they've reduced it now for 3 years, you're now eligible for the remigrant package. And that seems great for students, optically. But what they have done now is that those students can't bring in a certain type of vehicle that they may have acquired abroad, because now they're limited to the $5 million credit that they can use towards the tax payments. So they have changed for the worse the situation with Guyanese who live abroad and who want to come back home, as well as our students who are studying abroad. I recall number 3. I recall in 2015 budget, the Minister of Finance spoke extensively about the level of remission of taxes. And he had cheerleaders in the Kaichor News, and they said that the $55 billion that was remitted in taxes, that this went to friends and family of people in the PPP. So the minister said he will reduce this. This has now grown to $72.9 billion in the 2018 budget. From $55 billion to $72.9 billion they have remitted in taxes, given up in taxes now. So that is it. The minister introduces, in his budget measures, a 46-page passport. He says the 32 pages remain at the $6,000, and people are grateful for that. But in 2017, he had increased it from 4,000 to 6,000. We have sometimes short memory. The replacement tin certificate, and it shows the confusion in this government. In 2017, he increased that to 5,000, the replacement certificate, to $5,000 for replacement tin certificate. Now he's come back now and reduced it to $2,000, but it's still higher than it was before. So confusion again. The tributers tax, you'll remember 2017, he increased it by 100% for the miners. When we made some noise, he reduced it back to, in 2018, to its previous levels. So in 2017, they replaced the 2% final tax for the miners with the regular taxation, that miners will now have to file their returns the same way as others are filing the returns. So they'll be subjected to a 28 to 30% ban. Then in 2018, he came and he changed that back to a 2%, a sliding scale now, 2% to 3.5%. In 2019, he is now coming to say again that this 2 to 3.5 is a final tax. This shows the confused level or the confusion in the Ministry of Finance. In 2017, he imposed a 2% withholding tax on gross payments to contractors. In 2018, he comes to say in his budget measures, he's going to have better definition of, he's going to amend the law to have a better definition of contractors. I can go on and on to show how many problems we have had with confusion in the budget. We'll leave some of this for a little bit later. But the measures, look at what public servants got, the measures to increase income of people, generally Guyanese. They got a $5,000 increase in their tax threshold, and the elderly and the disabled got a $1,000 increase on their pension and public assistance. That is their measure. That is what poor people got out of this budget. So, what is interesting is if you look at the exemptions from VAT, etc. Now, many of these things that the minister has come back now to exempt were zero rated. So he then placed the VAT in 2017 on all of these issues, all of them. Now he's coming back to remove the VAT, but not zero rating the items any longer. He's exempting them. Now for the public, the general public, there's a big difference between zero rating and exempting. If you zero rate an item like we had for electricity, water, medical services, food items, sand, stone, cement, all of these things, it meant that any input VAT, so VAT that you spend, if you make concrete blocks and you pay the VAT on your cement or so, you can claim it back and you register, you claim that or you deduct it from your final VAT payment. If you exempt it, if it's zero rated, if you exempt it, you can't claim back input VAT that you have paid on all the items that you use to make your product. So you can't claim a refund. And that is what he has done cleverly. So it looks like exempt. Oh, the minister is exempted from tax payments. But effectively, people cannot claim their input VAT now. So it will be reflected in higher prices. So what he did, the items were not, some of these items had no VAT on them, they were zero rated. He moved them to vatable status and then put the 14% on them. And now, rather than taking them back to zero rated items, he took them to exempt category so that they can't claim any refund. So a lot of these things look good on the surface, but when you actually start going through the dynamics of how they work, then you will, or not APNU, hardcore PNC supporters stop haggling over chairmanship of PNCR, our party will lose 2020 elections. So there are a couple of things we need to deduce from this. That it was a sham when they met Saturday, November 12th, to have a love and unity consort in Sophia, because that preceded this speech to our party supporters by 11 days. So that was just a sham. Then they appeared on the stage together. It meant that they have huge, deep internal divisions about leadership in their APNU. And now they are all, they talk about us not treating President Granger with respect, but we have done so even more than they have. They're all busy lining up people as part of the succession. They're planning already his demise with him. And this is part of what you see now playing out in APNU. And so the second thing is that this statement belie also the Friday, November 16 joint press conference at Congress Place, where they were hugging each other and cheering each other along and saying, we love each other. But really, there's some knives, sheathted knives around the place to stab each other in their backs. And she made that clear at her report or in her speech to the PNC members. So it's not the haggling that will cause them to lose the 2020 elections. It's not the internal divisions even. It is the betrayal of the people of this country. They have failed to keep any of their promises to people across Guyana. Everybody, APNU supporters as well as PVP supporters. That is why people are upset. And I can list everything again, and I don't want to do that, but everything, almost every single manifesto promise they're broken. And you see the kind of budget they're passing now. That's not pro-people. It's not even pro-business. It's pro-elite. A couple of them are fat-fouling themselves. That's all. If they're the concept fat foul, yes. But you know what I mean. They're enjoying themselves. That's all. And they only know people now, like on the ground, because they need them around election time. But that is why you would lose. Not because of your internal haggling and their willingness. So, but what also it really reveals is the visceral racism in many of the leaders of APNU, the visceral racism. And so people were told, for example, on November 28, 2018, PNCR eyes by elections to take back Georgetown and Demerara constituencies from PVP. So Valder Lawrence said, comrades, they took 3 from us in Georgetown. They never got it. They got it in names. Comrades, and we will take it back. We'll take it back. We ain't waiting for no 3 years. We will use the law that is on our side and we'll take them back. So that's one thing. What law says that after an election, the PVP trunks you in, that you can then displace people. As far as we know, people have to resign or die if they're from constituencies. And these are only the constituency candidates. But there's no such law. It's a fabrication. But it reveals her either lying to her supporters, it's because that's how I see it, or living in some, or just emerging from some cave from the Middle Ages to make such a statement. Because there is no such law. Where is such a law? But then she goes on to say, 28 candidates looking like you running in Georgetown, and 2 looking like Jagdeo. Do you understand the strategy? Well, the first thought that came across my head is, if she was referring to Indo-Guyanese, a lot of them don't look like me. Most of them don't know bald or anything like that. But this is laced with racism. It's laced. Our people are now who look like whom. You know, she should have the decencies to say, you know, at least say, call people by name. Afro-Guyanese, Indo-Guyanese, Guyanese of Indian descent, Guyanese of African descent. That's what we are. We're Guyanese of a particular descent. But we're Guyanese. You know, not to say who look like Jagdeo and who look like you. That's laced with racism. You know, if anybody makes such a statement from our side, the whole media would have been in uproar by now. The entire media would have been in uproar. So that's one. I believe it's something that we must condemn. We must condemn it. And then the next statement is, she made it clear that her priority is to give jobs to her friends who are evidently party supporters. This is the Morar Waves again. The only friends I got is PNC. So the only people I gonna give work to is PNC. And right now I'm looking for a doctor who can talk Spanish or Portuguese, and I want one that is PNC. This is the chairman of the People's National Congress, the Minister of Public Health, a leader in the country saying this. How many of us are members of the PNC? You probably got 1% of the population are members of the PNC, card-bearing members of the PNC. They got like 1,400 delegates, and if you get 3 persons per delegate, probably 5,000 members, card-bearing members. Most of us are not. Most of us are not members of the PNC. But she said, first of all, nepotism. I'll give only jobs to my friends. So you got to be her friend first, and then you got to have the second qualification of being PNC. So if you're PNC and not her friend too, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. So even those PNC people who are not her friend. Now this is not the kind of thing you say in a country like ours. We have never done, in fact this is illegal. Valda Lawrence could be charged for this because our laws say, labor laws say, you cannot discriminate against people on the basis of their gender, their sexual orientation, their whatever else, their race, their religion. But she is making it clear that she is going to discriminate against people on the basis of their politics. This is illegal. I'm hoping that we'll see some private criminal charges being filed against Valda Lawrence for a statement like this, because this is a threat to people. It's, first of all, it's corrupt to say you only give jobs to your friends. And secondly, you're saying I'll discriminate on the basis of party affiliation. Where would our country go if we start doing this? And it's one thing that the PPP will never do. Never do. And that's why today we never asked when you came into public service or in the army or the police or anywhere else, which party did you vote for? Do you have a party card, etc. When we send people abroad to study, all those same doctors, the 1,400 of them, we never asked who they supported. We sent them off to study because they're children of our country. And so that is the approach. We made it clear. We don't have to go in secret corners and talk about race. At the press conference, I've made it clear that the PPP is underrepresented with Afro-Ghanaians, and we are making a conscious effort to change that. We're making a conscious effort to do it. We are welcoming people into the party. We want to break down the stereotypes. And our success in Georgetown and many parts of the country is because of that. When people come into our party, they're part of our family, regardless of the race or religion or something else, or their gender. That's how we see them. We didn't see them at 28 Afro-Guyanese in Georgetown or people who look like Volta. Those are our comrades. We didn't see them as who look like Volta. They are our comrades carrying a program. When we selected our candidates to the city council, look at the balance. We not only had a balanced list, but look at our councillors in the city council. We made sure that our people are treated fairly and not on the basis of their politics and race. That's the difference between us. That's the difference between us. And so these things are coming out now. And so to desperation is unbelievable. And if the Nagamutu and the AFC had the decency to withdraw for a moment, look at it. He has introduced, for example, capital gains, 3 measures on capital gains. But look at the end, and people say, oh, the minister did something wonderful. Now we don't have to, like, we can reinvest our capital gains in a property for 6 months. And look at the last line on capital gains, where he explains it. It says, these 3 measures are contemplated to be revenue neutral in view of the fact that the 2011 market value of assets are realistically closer to the current 2017 market values. So when people thought from these 3 measures they're ahead in the game, it's revenue neutral. It means one will bring in more and the others will give some. And so they will net each other out. It's not a concession. And he announces this as measures to stimulate the economy. But it's revenue neutral. So those are the things you have to look out for with a more careful reading of the budget. And notwithstanding all of these measures, how many pages? 1, 2, all of these measures are supposed to help the economy and our people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, more than this. 11 pages of measures. Guess how much the minister gives up in all of these 11 pages of measures? 3.5 billion total he gives up in taxes. And then he increases tax collections this year by $31 billion. All of these 10 pages. So everything to the public servants and to the private sector and to the miners and to everyone else, the farmers, whatever else they got. All the concessions that he gave in 11 pages, he is giving up $3.5 billion and then taking $31 billion more, raking in through higher tax collection, which is nearly a 10% growth in tax collections in an economy that will barely grow at 4-point-something%. And we're not even sure, because that is his projection. Many years he's made projections, and we've had to revise significantly downwards. significantly downwards. So this is the sort of thing that we have to look at when we examine the budget. The budget has nothing for poor people. It's not going to stimulate the economy. It has a massive amounts of non-productive expenditure, as I've shown. It cannot be the framework for the development of Guyana. Cannot be. If you tax people more, you just waste their money by budgeting it for yourselves and for frivolous things, and you just give them little pittances and hope they'll be happy. Nothing for jobs, nothing for job creation. In fact, youth in the capital budget for youth was $320 million in 2018. It fell to $236 million. That is under the Ministry of the Presidency. $236 million. Nothing for young people or anything of that sort. They said $1.7 billion for youth programs. So when we looked at what these programs are, they're the same training programs from the past, like Kuru College and everything else. It's nothing new. It's a minuscule. So young people suddenly think 1.7 we're getting out of this budget. No, it's incrementally a tiny increase for those programs. Nothing for young people, nothing for elderly people, nothing for disabled people, except in the duty-free vehicles that they're going to get. And many of them could have gotten that in the past too. It's nothing new. And on the green state, look at the measures for the green state. We're bringing in one electric car this year. I heard they're going to give it to Larry Singh, the man who owns the drug bond, the one electric car for testing for them. And we'll pay $500 million to test it. So this is what's going to happen. And a couple of things like that, cosmetic things. The whole green state concept or the low carbon concept is about earning revenue for your country. It's about catalyzing different sorts of investment. It is not about cost to the nation. They missed the entire bus on this concept. And a lot of the budget is money that they're spending that we earn through the low carbon development strategy, especially for the hinterland programs. This is money that we earn. So they missed the bus entirely on that. They missed the bus on renewable energy. In fact, any form of energy. Any form of energy. So our electricity network, well, not the network, but generating capacity will not improve significantly, if at all, in 2019. And that means more power failures, a worse situation. They missed the bus on big issues in this budget. But knowing APNU, they've always done that, especially this government. So I just deal with a couple of issues more, and then we've seen a high level of desperation from APNU. This was a party that bestrode this country with a great deal of arrogance and chest beating. You know, it's our turn now. Forget the PPP, forget ordinary people, forget ordinary people. We're now in office. We're different. We're the elite now, the 5%, the 5% of them who benefited. Forget even their supporters. And they got a rude awakening, because what we've been saying to them, that your rosy picture of yourselves and how well you're doing, this backslapping kind of attitude that you have and the level of arrogance you portray everywhere in the National Assembly, etc., refusal to listen, and does not resonate well with the public, because you're failing them on all grounds. You're failing Guyanese by, you're failing us at international negotiations. You demonstrated incompetence at almost every level, a bizarre kind of incompetence that we see out of this government, almost comprehensively in everything that they do. You have lost 30,000 jobs. Your people, cost of living is going up, and you still believe you're delivering the good life if you listen to their speeches. And they got a rude awakening from people. And what happened is that unhinged them. I think they got unhinged totally. They started scattering, and this whole facade that they cobbled together of unity and togetherness, with late night meetings in private homes and with hastily arranged press conferences at Congress Place with a mob criticizing the reporters. Those were just manifestations of them becoming desperate and unhinged. And we know that once that happens, the true nature of the leaders would be revealed. That this powdering up of the face and the facade that they were putting on, and the attempted sophistication and the fallacy of social cohesion will all disappear in a moment, and their true nature would be revealed. And we have seen that. We've seen it in two areas largely. We've seen it now in an attempt to lash out at PPP. They made it clear. Ramjatan said it. I heard him say it too in this launch. And Nandalal and Irfan Ali said it clearly. Heard him say it. In fact, he threatened them in the parliament because he has a problem with keeping his mouth closed. Well, obviously, there was a plan. So he said to one, you will be charged and you will be convicted. And so that was what he said to them. And I do not think that they're going to leave it there. We've always suspected that this is how they will operate. In fact, there was this suspicion before, but now I think the results of the last local government elections and then this no confidence motion has forced them to accelerate that plan. It's forced them. And we see it unfolding before us. And so it's going to get more repressive, but we're not going to succumb to their pressure or their bullying or these oppressive tactics. We're not going to succumb to that. We'll remain united and strong, and we will deal with them as they come up. So that's one. And two, that's the first thing. And two, we have seen a kind of strange thing. So the Demerara Waves report of November 28 said, stop haggling over chairmanship of PNC, or our party will lose 2020 elections, Valda Lawrence. So she's telling a bunch of APNU, hardcore, their snouts from the trough of privileges and perks and extravagance, then they would rise to the occasion and condemn such a speech. But he will not, because he's busy feeding there. He's busy feeding in the trough. And that is why they will never do that. And so I just don't want to go to an anticlimax, but I have to say the Chronicle, I saw Chronicle saying November 28th. They quoted some Marlon Williams saying AFC have learned from their mistakes. So I thought they're going to say that, well, they made all these bad mistakes in supporting these policies of the government, that are anti-people, and that they would stop being corrupt and stuff like that. I thought that they would say those things. But then the guy goes on to repeat some lies. He said the 3.8 vote was nationalistic. I don't know what I mean. It meant national, but nationalistic. I see Chronicle put that there. Then he said people are now calling them who want to be candidates. The election's gone. The people now calling them who want to be candidates. Isn't this party pathetic? And he says the AFC doesn't subscribe to anything secret at the municipality. So that's, what about at the national level? They're part and parcel of hiding all of the things that the government has done, the secrecy. And so by the way, GCOM has a lot of answering to do. GCOM has, you know, we've been calling for the disaggregation of the votes by parties. And I saw Starbuck News and the others, they took the Gazette and they added down. And they came up with a number. So, but GCOM had released 208,000 votes. So we are having a problem reconciling. We know that there are mistakes in the Gazette that will show that the margin is even slightly bigger than what you have in the Starbuck News and the other places. But the AFC should be ashamed. He spoke about they took away APNU votes in Georgetown, some of the APNU votes. In Maka, they took nearly 600 votes. GCOM gave them more than 600 votes from APNU because GCOM in the Gazette gazetted APNU votes in the AFC column, and therefore AFC got 600 votes more than they should have gotten there because in Maka they budgeted because of the mistake that GCOM made in putting them in the APNU column, their votes in the APNU column, and APNU votes in their column. So they should even be ashamed, this Marlon Williams, etc. I must say that I had to give a little plug for APNU there. But that doesn't change the 54,000 margin. That will not change the 54,000 margin. So let me just say once again that these acts of desperation will not move us away from our game plan. I see they're talking about the PPP and divisions in the PPP. That is their way of deflecting from the massive ongoing turmoil that they're faced with because of this no confidence vote and because of the election trashing and because of all of the things that are being revealed about them. So they're not going to move us off of our game plan. Thank you. Special branch to those meetings. And so, but that is it, because if they can show up surreptitiously by stealth in the night, they can do anything to. And that is what people keep saying to me, because they're desperate to hang on to power. They can try to, you know, get one of our members locked up or anything happen, God forbids, anything else to one of our members, and so that they don't show up for the no confidence vote. And now they're even worried about the appropriation bill that it could be voted against. So this is, I will not put anything past APNU at this stage.
Did the party raise concerns about tapping of numbers?
I just assume they're tapping our phones. I just assume, because one time they bought some serious equipment, and the people that they put were political people in charge of that program. So I use WhatsApp. So to make calls. So I don't, and I suggest you do too. And don't make your calls. That is whenever the network would give us enough bandwidth and stable bandwidth too, because half of the time it's like a nightmare.
Mr. Jagdeo, Mr. Ali is in charge. You brought the board. Your party contends with some charges, but what image intends, when he's also the member of the, the head of the political council with Parliament, do you intend to have him remain there? Or?
He will remain there, because if we only succumb to any of these issues, we wouldn't have people in Parliament. We wouldn't have people. We would have had to take out 4 or 5 of our MPs already. That is, and I think that's the plan of APNU. I heard they're even trying to influence our selection of candidates. But it's not APNU who's going to select the candidates or anyone else. It's the PPP who would select the candidate. It's not APNU. And we will ensure that whoever that candidate is, that candidate carries out, fulfills every promise that we are making to the people of this country, to reverse a lot of these hardship policies, to chart a course forward that involves everyone, people of every race and every political persuasion, even if you vote against us, that they must be included in our vision. That is what, whoever emerges. And so we're working towards that. But this is pretty dangerous. And from the perspective of Irfan Ali, every time they needed him, he has gone in. Any PPP member, you know, they can call you in to say come at 7 o'clock, and people would have gone in. But to show up at his home at 4 a.m. in the morning, they wanted to send a message. This is the vindictive nature of this government, to go and arrest him at 4 a.m. in the morning. He could have easily gone there any time during the day. They could have said, show up at Soku for 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. But they had to make that point.
How will those charges impact the particular presidential candidate?
They will not impact any. No, these or other charges will not impact, because we see a pattern of behavior. They're going.
When will that election be?
Again, I told you already. No, I said before the end of the year. But I didn't tell you about the no confidence too. And we're in budget. You know, we had a very tough process. And remember, we won quite a bit of seats across the country. So let me tell you how many consultations we've had to do. We went out before we selected a candidate to run at local government elections. We listed the criteria, 13 criteria for our people on the ground to pick the candidates. We said to them, do widespread consultation, because this can be centralized. It's 80 areas, 3,000 candidates, etc. Some areas they did it well, and other areas they did not do so well in selecting the candidates. We agreed with the candidates. We then, so that's the second time, we met with the people on the ground, all the teams, to agree with the candidates, the leadership of the party. Then we sent out our leaders to consult again with the people to select the councillors. Then we sent out our leaders to consult on the chairman and the vice chairman. And often you have contention, because people, you know, they're divided sometimes based on individuals, like in every situation. But at the end of the day, that took a lot out of us, because we had a lot, we did it the way that we wanted to do, in a consultative way. We're not perfect. We couldn't satisfy everyone on the ground. Not everybody could have become councillors or chairman and vice chairman, but we tried to follow a process. So we've been engaged in that. We've been engaged in now debates on the budget. But we will not, as far as I know, up to now, we haven't shifted our timetable for the selection of the candidate. We haven't shifted. Although we are so busily engaged in all of these issues. We haven't even gone out properly to thank all the supporters who voted, you know, right across the country, and other people too. We put out a few notices and stuff. But so we're extremely busy, but we still so far haven't changed that deadline.